Okay, what are your thoughts about Wānaka Airport?
Thoughts about Wānaka Airport. I think I spoke to Michael Ross about this. He reached out recently and it was really helpful to understand the perspective. I mean, the obvious thought has been the way that it's gone about it has been the wrong way. I think it shows a lot of what the council has been led like in the respect of not really doing the proper consultations with communities and sharing everything and kind of doing it behind people's back some degree. So I think, the transparency is kind of insulting to local communities, not really having open conversations around what's needed, how it's going to have an effect on people, and being honest about the long-term outcomes for the residents and the people involved.
Okay, thank you. What were the key learnings from the recent High Court ruling about Wānaka Airport?
I guess the importance of transparency and proper consultation, and the danger of going beyond and making decisions on behalf of the community without consulting the community, and like the damages, long-term damages of trust that can come from that behaviour.
Thank you. Did you read the judgment?
No, to be fair.
Okay. How have you kept yourself informed about airport issues?
Well, like I said, I went and spoke with Michael Ross about it and just asked questions to him about what his thoughts were and experiences and how that went. I've kept up with some crux articles about the Terrace Airport and the Wānaka one, as well as asked a few residents about it, and just the general kind of consensus of people who are affected by it, and what their stances on it were.
Thank you. Have you read the Martin Jenkins report?
No.
Okay. Who do you believe should determine the future evolution of Wānaka Airport?
I don't know. I think my experience hasn't been that well involved with it. Like, I'm quite a young candidate and haven't had as much exposure into a lot of the decision making previously. And so I wouldn't be comfortable in actually saying who should be the right person without knowing. Okay.
What do you know about the Wānaka Airport Liaison Committee?
From what I know, it's a committee that was started in order to try and basically make a group so that they could have local representatives be part of the decision-making process, so that the conversations could be represented by the community, if that makes sense. So electives from Hawera and Wānaka and Luggett to be involved in the process.
Thank you. There is provision made for the Wānaka Airport Liaison Committee in the QLDC district plan, but it hasn't been established. If elected, will you promote and support the establishment of the Wānaka Airport Liaison Committee? And if so, describe how, please.
Absolutely. I think I was asked to be on it potentially, but I'm sure I haven't followed up. But yeah, I do think my form of how I want to lead is getting as many people involved as possible, because like science, I find peer review is quite an effective form of ideas holding their value. If it makes it through a lot of those filters, then it's a good idea in the end of the day. And if it doesn't, then there's some fundamental issues. So I would definitely be in support of having more diverse structure in order to help guide the decisions around Wānaka Airport in the future. And in that respect, of the power through council would be to support the Wānaka Airport Liaison Committee.
Thank you. What do you see as the key issues and considerations driving the airport's future?
So the expansion thing, I think there's a lot of pressure that people are saying the capacity of Queenstown's, there's a restriction on length either side and that we need another airport somewhere else. I know the numbers are about 7.5 million a year that they were trying to bring in from just over 2. So they're trying to triple the amount of people coming through, which I think, there's a real, it lacks a consideration of the other supportive infrastructure that's supposed to support that, and that kind of fast tracking of this tourism without really taking a consideration on how it's going to affect the local communities. And I think that's kind of what everyone's so disappointed about, is that there hasn't been those wider conversations to help understand the long-term impacts of that. And there's just been quite a considerable push about, no, this is what we need. And, you know, like, it's the way forward. And yeah, like that's been it. There's not as much convincing arguments that support like kind of the wellbeing aspect of it.
Okay. And what is your stance on carbon emissions, and what should QLDC do? Please be specific.
Please be specific. So the carbon emissions, I think, you know, we can forecast that carbon emissions are going to be calculated, and we're going to have to offset emissions. And there's also big proposals around regenerative tourism. So there is a lot to say that the current airports have a skewed version of how they offset their carbon emissions and aren't actually taking into account the total impact of it. I do think locally we can support things like carbon farms, which have been helping design in hardware to offset those emissions locally, and so that there's a regenerative aspect that is immediate and visible to the townships that are affected by it. And so, yeah, so creating some structures to easily support the offset of carbon emissions through carbon sinks and the capturing of it.
Thank you. And what is your position on the proposed new airport at Terrace?
My position on it. So I'm still gathering all the data, I guess I can say. I've been keeping up with Crux's views on it, and I've seen the Otago Regional Council's views, the residents that are going to be affected in the Christchurch airport. I was advised not to take strong views just in terms of whether or not that diminishes my ability to be an advocate if I am in the position to make change, because there's maybe a conflict of interest. But like my understanding, I've always been open-minded to stuff. But I understand the enormous effect it's going to have on residents, and I can see that if they are looking to create a different option, how they would come across Terrace. And my hope is that they just grow slow and consult the community as much as possible and talk through a lot of the issues, talk about staging process, so how and the honest effects of what it's going to have. So that everyone can have as much information as possible before making their decisions.
Thank you, Cody. And what do you see as the role of the Wānaka Community Board and where it should fit with Council?
The Wānaka Community Board, I guess, because Council has a responsibility to see the region as a whole. I think the Wānaka Community Board has the advantage of being able to specify in Wānaka. And I think they're going to be great advisors to Council to help better specify how we can help the communities. I have a lot of respect for a lot of the people who are running for that position, and I will pull on them quite a lot for their expertise to help make the decisions that I will be affected by in the role of Council.
Thank you. And a bonus final question. You've got 1 minute to address the people of Wānaka, and the floor is yours.
Oh, crap. Hello, Wānaka. My name's Cody. I grew up in Wānaka, going to Mount Aspiring College for the full 7 years, and it's been my home for the majority of my life. I'm very passionate, and I care about the place and about the people in it. And so that's a big reason why I'm standing, to make sure that young people still have the opportunities to build a life here and be a part of the community and a part of the decision making. I've seen a lot of friends be really harshly affected by COVID, and I'm trying to help build a more optimistic vision of the future so that people can get together and work on something that's really hopeful and inspiring, rather than be isolated in our homes and have kind of this nihilism that's seeped into our community. So fingers crossed, in this position, I can be a voice for change and help people feel more optimistic about things changing for the better.